Folks, we're back for another fantastic edition of our Traders Talk Workshop. Not Tuesday, but this Monday. Got our weekdays right again, but Monday, August 26th. Great to have all of our students and members alike inside our live trading room. We got Grant, Gillis, Daryl, Michael, Brian, Larry. Where are ladies at right now? We got Patrick, we got Ray. Where are ladies at right now? We got Laureen at least joining us here. We got Margaret joining us here, at least Charlene from before. I had Leda just earlier. I'm always teasing with that in mind. Great to see the ladies and gents all together inside our live trading room. Now, for all of us back on social media, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, etc. I'm slacking here right now. I should have had this popping up lower left at Cyber Trading You. If you are not followed or subscribed yet to our stream, just be a friend, tell a friend that we got a YouTube channel here, and we're going to be talking all about Nvidia here throughout a good portion of our Traders Talk Workshop today. Actually, coming up, let me just share this with you if I can. There we go. We got the earnings calendar here. A little nerdy, might I say, but each and every Sunday, I like to actually update my desktop background. Hey, I get my Butler Bulldogs logo coming in soon, but for right now, I always like to post the earnings calendar going into the week. So we all know we got Nvidia right here, right? Nvidia, NVDA, just after the close coming up on Wednesday of this week. So with that in mind, we're going to get to Nvidia. Don't get me wrong. But let me actually go over a few different things, at least from earlier today. Barbara, Phil, Grant, all of us here from earlier. And I'll tell you what, the way I phrased it earlier when I did the morning meeting, it's again like you open up the blinds, you open up your curtains outside, you see what the weather's like, right? And you see it's a little murky out, a little rainy out, some clouds. You're not walking outside in a tank top and board shorts, right? You're bringing your umbrella. So with that, things weren't looking too good going into the open, but I'll tell you, we've had a couple of decent trades, a couple of good runs where thankfully the clouds cleared a bit, it led for a couple of good runs, and that's where we'll get to Peloton to start, because this was your prototypical like category 1 or 2 stock. Was this the shiny object in the room today? Was this the top percent gainer? No, but we're not trying to impress you with that as much. It's easy to tell you stocks like, INDO made a move earlier today. We had the PWM from pre-market. That was up big. We ended up doing well on MRM, another stock early this morning that popped. These are all kind of like the shiny objects in the room. So, we'll go over these stocks just in a bit, but I want to go over something that's easy. I want to go over something that's very simple for us to have confidence in as far as a big move shortly after. So, Peloton to start ended up making a nice little pop. We ended up capitalizing on the long and actually on the way back down. On the way back down as a short, not in it right now. I wish I ended up staying in for a little bit longer, but this actually brings me to a couple of things, at least from earlier, because even in our trading room, this was last week, and then even this morning, I brought it back up. I had a student asking me about how much does your average student end up making on a given day or something of that nature? Like, what's your average student's win-loss percentage or something like that? Like, I wish I can give you a hard calculated factoid number for any company that says, oh yeah, we have 75% win-loss. Our students. All right, well, I hope that they could back that up, show all of their trades each and every week. We can't collect that data because it's not required out of our students to send to us. Now, it's recommended. In phase 1, we talk about this where, especially early on, we advocate for you to send your journals over. But that's like as a starting point, right? Once you have your foot really grounded here, once you have your footing straight, it gives you a pretty good ability to study from, but we're not necessarily asking you to send over the journal every week for the next 2, 3, 5 years. You know what I mean? So eventually students like Barbara and Phil and Grant and Michael J and Brian W. and, a lot of us that have been with us in our room, they know at this point, what works for them. But basically that's where I'll tell you, I'll give you a couple statistics here because I'd asked earlier, a couple poll questions I'd set up earlier here for our students. And this is where I'll show the first one. What is your average or typical winning day at CTU? We don't talk about the money as much, and we're not, saying, Adam, John, Kathleen, so-and-so. We're just talking general numbers here. But it looks like, probably about more than half of us are around $500 or less per day. And hey, to say that, that's actually a pretty good number. Let's say if you're 4 out of 5 green days throughout the week and your average is around $400 to $500. All right, well, even that one losing day, I'm sure it's not even going to be too bad. It's just to say you're going to be walking out around like $1,000, $2,000 per week across a 52-week year, you're supplementing your income. That's a steady day's pay, or that's a steady job for the calendar year. If you're around $400 or $500 per day. But otherwise, again, we have some students that are around that 500 to 1,000 or 1,000 to 2,000, per day. These are students that are not just trading the shiny objects in the room, but they actually know better than that. Sometimes they will, if they're confident in the setup at the time that they're looking at it. But more than that, they're kind of focused on stocks that aren't really so volatile or as crazy, stocks like Peloton here. So once this had popped when the market opened up, we had called this out pretty quickly. It was breaking above resistance off of 5. It was on our watch list. It was the last stock that was on the morning watch list that we had here today. So, you know me, I always like to tell you, start and stick with the watch list here. Give me a quick moment. I'll just share that for all of us in social right now. All of us on social media, I'll just show you the morning watch list that we put out earlier today. Again, just follow or subscribe to our YouTube stream at Cyber Trading U. We're on live every weekday, Monday to Friday at 9 a.m. Peloton we had on there. That was one of many that we were looking at, but it was one that was still strong from Friday of last week. And again, it's not the shiny object in the room. It's possible it can become more volatile, but it's not like we were expecting it to be. It was just on a good run from Thursday into Friday. So going into this open, we have to ask, all right, well, where are the big levels? Where were the big levels on this trade? How can we find them? And that's what we do every week here in Traders Talk. So it's easy to tell you, oh, it popped, it moved up. But there were specific levels that we were calling out in advance or as they were happening, either way. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to ask Barbara and Brian B, Brian W, Gillis, and Michael J, all of our students that are joining us in our curriculum, phases 1, 2, and 3, to answer these. So for all of us here, really quick, just again, we do this one every week. What common set of price levels are we more likely to find icebergs for a cheap stock like Peloton, for a pretty inexpensive stock like PTON? What common set of price levels? My book viewer session expired. I was going to even show you the NASDAQ book viewer here. Bear with me one moment. I'll even try and bring that up here if I can, if I have time. But 50-cent levels and whole numbers, right? So, point being is that loosely speaking, our North Stars here in the stock market, and especially for a point blank pretty cheap stock like Peloton, you'd be more inclined to focus on the 50-cent levels and whole numbers, right? So really brief, I'm just trying to reformat this damn book viewer here. Just give me a split moment. There we go. This is level 3, right? This is just, straight level 3 data, NASDAQ book viewer data here. Right now, $5. It may have just teetered around that line for a bit, but you could actually see 18 different sell orders out there. That's the highest number of orders out there for one price on the ask. Coming up on the bid or ask here otherwise. We keep going. 450, about 12,000 here, about 22 total buy orders. Keep going down here, 550, 65 total buy orders. Or sell orders here, I'm sorry. So you could really tell not just from the size that's actually out there on the bid ask, but otherwise just seeing the total number of orders that make up the size. So oftentimes at those 50-cent levels and whole numbers, we're going to more often find these larger levels of support, larger levels of resistance. So again, easy to say it popped and moved up today. But if we have resistance at $5 and we know that ahead of time, and if our best entries to buy a stock are directly after it breaks through a big level on the way up, and if we're waiting the first 3 to 5 minutes, at least otherwise, to try and jump into a trade, then wait the first 3 to 5 minutes, then see if this can make this breakout, right? That's easy to say after the fact, but, hey, let's see what even level 4 shows. Yeah, going into the morning here, I just kind of spoiled that there a bit, but you had about 24, 25,000 shares on the ask at 5. Well, what's our next resistance? Well, much larger sell order here, but at 528, we had resistance, sitting right there going into the market open, at least from 9 o'clock onward, probably much more than that, probably all throughout the pre-market hours here. It was sticking out from 8 a.m. onward. So that's your larger resistance, right? But you got your first resistance here. If this could break above 5, then there's the thought of this going from 5 up towards 528. Obviously there's more to it than this. We'll discuss in just a moment here, but that's the first game plan here on the stock. It was on our list. We had 2 resistance levels here, and that's what we were looking at. Now, if it pulled back at the open first. If it dropped and then bounced, which didn't happen, then maybe 460 could be support, maybe 450 as a 50-cent level there could be support. If we actually go back, I can't go back to Friday's trading. Sec here. Thought I had that open. Thought I'd be able to go back to actually Friday of last week. But, that's where we could even look here. We had big spike at the end of Friday of last week at the price 484. So that's something right away that you could plot as a level also heading into the open. That was the closing bell print from Friday of last week. So that likely is going to be a support level here. It never pulled back that low at the open, kind of just popped at the open. So never really got that test yet, but that would have been your first level. Now, let's just go into this trade here because I ended up jumping into this when it broke over 5. I tried waiting as long as I could. I say this to our students in our trading room. I have to fit the water in there somewhere. I try and tell our students in our trading room, you wait the first 5 minutes because there's a lot of chaos that happens when the market opens up. If you're not experienced with pre-market trading, but that pre-market trading goes on, just realize how many people don't know that pre-market trading go on, and they just only start trading when the market opens up. It's like watching the floodgates open. So, you want to see the chaos play out within the first 3 minutes, first 5 minutes from there. Just, hey, from that point, it started to test 5. It re-broke 5 here. It flipped 5 into support right here at this stage. I waited as long as I could. I got in at like 503, 502 at this point, and it ended up making a nice little run, right? So I had my stop set. It was right below either here or here, just pretty tightly knit underneath 5. Much like I asked Barbara and Iqbal and Larry, our students here, hey, when a stock breaks through a big level, what should we be expecting shortly after? A big move, right? So that's either a big move up or a big move down. I'm either going to get this to run in my direction or it's going to eventually fall back down and then fail, right? So, we have to accept fate either way there. We're applying strategy as well as we can on the entry. Now we need to accept fate either way. It's either going to not make that big move shortly after going up or it is. So, in this point, I ended up just watching the higher lows build. It was looking pretty good. I had confidence in seeing the 528. I got to admit, I had pretty good confidence in that. Really briefly, this is only 9:37 in the morning, and it's already at 5:16. So I thought there was very good confidence in it hitting this price. And then you could see over time some funny business happening here. Looks like this order got pulled. There was another order that popped up at 538, different person out there. Now, over time, I ended up getting what I wanted. This ran up. It moved up, higher lows, pushed up. But otherwise, though, I got out at like 520. So I could have done a better job on the exit here. I was looking elsewhere. I'm like juggling a few bowling pins in the air this morning. Fausto's out running the show solo, trading on my own here too, and I'm going to miss moves. But it's like I got like 5 different bowling pins in the air today running unicycle. So, I'm not going to be perfect. But I should have had the exit right around 525, 526 the high. Not only was that resistance, not only was that like an iceberg resistance, but let's just go to the daily chart, right? Let's just go to the daily chart here. Because the last time it was around this price, it kind of peaked kind of right here. A little bit of a gap fill opportunity, but right around 528, great bottom here, like long down wick right here too, and a bounce. And then eventually on a gap down, it held it as resistance on this candle, right? How can you not say that this is like a good historical level to work with? So that was something I had in mind at first. And then that iceberg order kind of showed up once the market opened up there at 528 or pre-market rather. Did I type this in the chat? May have been too busy riding my unicycle this morning. Yeah, Rich posted it in the chat room for us here today, shortly after the market opened up at 9:37 in the morning. He said 102,000 share iceberg on the ask at $5.28. This was a historical level too. 2 plus 2 does not equal 3. It equals 4. So by the time this ended up basically topping off here, I should have gotten out. I got out at 520. I was happy with it though altogether. For a rather stagnant morning, we had 1 or 2 pops. I missed out on those. This was my main horse going into today's race, and paid off, right? It was a good ending, nice trade otherwise. Thankfully, it got me there, but man, it was a little murky out in pre-market. So, levels played out, plan worked accordingly, and this actually became a great short afterwards, right? This became a good short, so I ended up taking 2 trades on this as a short. I went break even on the first attempt, and then I took it again, and I got like some profit, but not much. And 10 cents. It was decent. I can't complain. But basically, when this fails to break higher, we got resistance here. Some funny business happening here, but we got some resistance. There's a case to see a test. Well, it doesn't. It fails and it comes back down. And it's at this point that I'm on a call with one of our students here at this stage, and I'm just like, all right, well, if I'm out of my long trade from this point here already, so I'm wondering what's going to happen. Can we get this hold of 520 and a move back up, or is it going to begin to pull back? So I ended up jumping in, and then the damn thing kind of stopped me out at first, and then it pulled back more. I jumped in on the next attempt as a short. I got 10 cents on it, but dropped off a lot more than I thought it was going to. So, I wanted to be more safe than sorry, take the money and run type of deal. I actually thought the stock was pretty strong coming off earnings. So, I was thinking that there was a case that this could eventually build support, then move back up even again. But I don't think that's going to be the case now. I mean, it definitely doesn't look at as much here. Looks like kind of it's holding underneath Friday's high. There could be more room on the way down, but at this stage, I'm still kind of focused on the general trend here of the move up. So, I wish I could have held into it more. It is what it is. I'm not going to look for another short entry, though. All right, really quick from Gillis. He's saying, can you show again level for the volume dot, please? The green dot volume. Yeah, absolutely. Great observation. So earlier today, and there was about a 250,000 share print that came in green, and we nicknamed that as buying. So, pretty much over here, this is like a critical moment where this ends up teasing this break, right? It's like over here. It's like it's trying, like more so here, and then this point. So this is actually a critical stage where it looks healthy, looks good as if it's going to re-break this, and it looks strong to run up, especially with there being 250,000 shares that were filled at that price. That's a lot more than the yellow or orange line here, right? 100,000 shares at 533 or 250,000 shares at 520, right? You tell me what's a larger number. I'm not trying to toss a curveball question to you at you right now. So it's just to mention that this is actually a critical point where it looks great. If someone jumped in long right here, I'd say, hey, it looks nice. There's a case to see this. To have 520 flip from resistance into support, have it break this, maybe even go higher. Where's your next level 6? Who knows, right? It's possible, right? I'm not saying it's a bad trade here at all. It's actually a good entry if you're thinking long. But this is exactly where I tell you, though, otherwise, it's what I just said before. When a stock breaks through a big level shortly after, we should be seeing a big move, right? So it tried. We didn't get it. It came back down. And if it's not going to make that big move in your direction, it's going to make a big move shortly after. But I'm not just saying that to say that. And I kind of want to stop myself right now because I take a lot more time in our curriculum to address that why right here. Like, why is it dropping so much after all of this green, after all of this proverbial buying, right? I've went over it here in the past, but in the phase 2 stock course mainly, not even phase 1 stuff, more phase 2, I have a much better ability to break this down. Point being, and it's more Captain Hindsight to say now at this move, but that wasn't buying volume, that's for sure. And if it's not buying volume, Gillis, there's only one other type of volume it can be. So that's where I say, you want to focus on green is buying first, red is selling first. But if it's failing to offer that expected big move up after, then odds are you're getting a big move just, the other way. So, that's a good observation at least, right? Iqbal asking, would you place your entry at 501? That's basically where I got in earlier, Iqbal. If you didn't hear me before, I was saying I jumped in shortly like right before the 5-minute marker ended. It was as it was like moving off of $5 here. I was waiting as long as I could. It's like when it's like 9:31 in the morning, I couldn't be further attracted from trading at that point. I've learned my lesson. I've hit my head on the floor the hard way a few times as a kid. Probably got some CTE from that. No, it's just to say that I've learned to not jump in here. But as much as I'm a stickler and I try and like wait as best as I can for 9:35, and honestly, more days than not, I'm waiting until 9:35. If there is a good setup that I'm very confident in, I'll try and go as long as I can. It's like I'm itching here. Come on, please. So, it ended up flipping resistance into support. It was moving up a little bit, and I jumped in at 502. I took this trade. Now, that's where I'll kind of address the second question. Iqbal asking, is it a market order entry? So actually before that, is it a market order entry? No, limit order. Limit orders all the way through. This is like a liquid enough stock. I get that. This is like category one or two. I know it had a fast drop here, but it's like namely a category one or two stock, not the fastest stock under the sun. Limit orders only. Limit orders only. I teach that in phase one, at least. I teach that in the phase one stock course. I'll go over that with you more on a one-on-one coaching call either way, as far as like the entry process using right here, limit order. But that will address us to the second question that I had set up earlier for our students. We'll go over Nvidia next, and then we'll go over Bitcoin actually afterwards. Those are the two big talking points I wanted to, go into here in Traders Talk. So, at least with this, I want to address Peloton because of how this is like a good exemplary category one or two stock. I'd asked our students earlier, for a category one stock priced around $5, not too expensive, not too fast moving, how many shares would you typically trade? And I'm asking not because it's any sort of contest. I'm not naming anyone here. It's all anonymous, but I'm just trying to have you kind of realize your fellow crowd, your fellow students that are inside our live trading room each and every day. A good number of us are doing 1,000 shares, but not all of us. Very small fraction doing 2,000 or more. A number of us doing, 100 to 300 shares, just loosely speaking in between there. And again, we're not asking for anyone to put their name out right now. This is all anonymous, guys. So, just to say that as far as like having confidence with taking this type of trade, the more that you're trading this on 100 shares, you'd have the confidence of knowing what's working more often than not, right? So with that, you should have the confidence to scale up to like 200-300 shares, get 500 shares. What works on 100 shares eventually works on 1,000 shares. Now, just because this is a cheap stock doesn't mean that I'm like blowing my whole account into this trade. So, for a stock like this, I'm just speaking for myself at least. I would do like 1,000 shares normally, and that's from 10 years of doing this like nonstop every day. I know a lot of us have like 10 years experiences in the market. I'm not trying to diminish anyone's experience if they've been following the stock market for 10 years. But if you are an active day trader of stocks for 10 years, that's a lot different compared to being an investor for 10 years. You're dealing with a totally different strategy or totally different list of stocks. We do focus on different rules as far as timing of the day. So that's where I'll tell you, at least, if you're a more seasoned day trader, you should be doing this on 500 shares. You should be doing this on 1,000 shares. Depending on how much of an account you got, maybe more. Myself, if I'm very confident, I would go up to 2,000. But there was no need to here. I wasn't overtly confident. I was just good enough to take the trade for a summer Monday morning. It's late August. I'm not trying to go crazy right before Labor Day, right before my birthday, but that's what I'll say, at least otherwise, good trade at least, right? Not to write home about, but it was enough to make me feel happy. Now, with that there, that's where I'll tell you, as far as like a new student inside our live trading room, right? If you're a new trader altogether, if you are, a new student of CTU, even if you have like 10, 20 years experience in the market, I want you to be following the call outs that Fausto is making when he is here. I want you to be following the call outs that I am making as I am here, Rich as well. Now, that's where I'll say, at least over time, you'll learn in our room, like who's like a fairly skilled trader just from like how they're chatting. If they're providing fairly good commentary themselves, probably someone that you'd want to take the time to follow. But that's where I'd say, at least, like, if you're not making $1,000 a day, I wouldn't be as jumpy to follow you compared to someone that is, right? I wouldn't be as keen to follow Josh, the instructor, until I learn more about him, until I, see him in action. So I'm not begging any of our new students to have your full trust in me right away. Even you'll gain my trust over time, basically. Week to week, you'll see how the same patterns play out, and you'll realize that this is a pattern that sticks, right? This is a strategy that plays out not 100% of the time, but much more often than not. So, that's where we invite you to join our trading room, at least as like a trial member. Then you join us in class, and throughout class, you really, see how the sauce is made. And here in Traders Talk, it gives you a sneak peek at least. All right, so Peloton, nice little move to begin. What else did we have from earlier today? We had like another little mover, then we'll jump into the good stuff. The asset move, yeah, assist asset entities. This was one that popped up out of nowhere. It wasn't looking too good going into the morning, honestly. Popped in pre-market, dropped in pre-market. It was dropping down like pretty much by the time the market had opened up. This was not like that good. There was not much interest for us here in our live trading room on this stock when the market opened up. But all of a sudden, once it starts making this big pop and it gets halted here at this point, that's where we start to take more of a focal point. So we'll even go over this move, the halt that happened here, got halted at 945, reopened up at 950, right? And then from there, I think, nope, didn't get halted going down. Didn't get halted going down, but it got halted on the way up at least. So let's go over this move and we'll basically explain what happened, where you could have taken a clean entry on this stock. I did not trade this myself. I was busy on Peloton, but ended up making a little run, right? So right away, I'm not even going to ask you to, answer it for me at this point. 50-cent levels and whole numbers. We just talked about it before. 150, $2, 250, etc. Right? Bam. All right. Now, easy to say, it topped off here too. Easy to say it pulled back and loosely speaking hovered right over 150. This wouldn't make any sort of entry though here. There's no under and over from 150 at least. But this is where I'll say, all right, well, where can we find a level otherwise? Where was there a big level on this trade? And that's where, like, we talk about this as well in class in the phase 2 stock course. We go over halts, when you're trading with Fausto in phase 3 or myself, if we catch a halt, then we'll focus on it there too. But, we talk about the halt print. What happens when a stock gets halted and it reopens up? Much like the market open, we'll see a big dot come in. So it's a 190,000 share transaction that took place, got filled, just transaction. It's a conglomerate of orders that got filled. The real reason behind it, it's not just one person, but that size is pretty impressive, right? 190,000 shares that got filled at 177. Well, when your largest order on level 4 here on the ask is like 29,000 shares, and this is like 190,000 shares, you tell me, right? You tell me what's a bigger level there. So that's where at least we'll map out 177, 178. If you have level 4, then this is very important for you to do. Yourself. We're posting this in the trading room, of course, at the time in which this reopens up. So what happened? Well, it ended up trying at first. It goes under and over that line actually a few times. I would have just been interested in it here at first. Goes under, goes back over. Right there actually quantifies as like a decent entry when it breaks over the level here, but it's still shaking around it after. It's very nippy. It's like chopping around it here. So that's where it throws you off and it eventually drops, right? There wasn't really much of a level, at least from this point of view. So if there was, that could have been a thought. But otherwise, what happens is this eventually gets the job done off of that 177. It does. Support should become resistance at first here, but if you end up jumping in initially, that did provide a little move. But then the more times, again, that it stabs it on the way up, that provides your opportunity to take the trade. So, if it's not here, then it's just the next time it's trying. Not every stock tries. Not every stock provides that opportunity. This could have easily held and then tanked. So the more it's trying, it presents that thought of, well, hey, if it could break over this level, there's the thought of it making a big move shortly after. And I'm not just talking from this level to this level, but eventually it built out like a Fausto flag ultimately, and it popped. Actually, this is a great example of a Fausto flag, something else we teach in class. So really quick. Right there. Pretty much, you see it, right? Nice top building, 1 or 2 shakes, but it eventually even breaks over 2. Gives you a good opportunity to jump in over 2, if not from that 177. But, eventually it stalled out. It failed. It's topped off shortly after 10:30 Eastern time. Obviously, right around here, 2:30, it had a tough time continuing from and, pulled back. Resistance flipped here at first, which is nice to see, but you'd rather that not happen at this stage. It didn't really look as if there was much resistance above 250, but didn't get that far. Some volume popped up over time, right? But by the time this initially broke over 2, there wasn't like a tremendous resistance here at 250 even, or 3. Like, this easily could have popped and continued and got halted on the way up and whatnot, but it didn't, right? Easy to say it didn't. But it's also easy to say that it could have. And, just to mention, if it's not going to at this point, if it's stalling out here, don't let it get to this point. Like, I'd rather it not. I'd rather take the money and freaking run at this point And if resistance can flip, then you might have a new entry. Maybe it can go. Maybe it can go after this point, but it doesn't. And when it doesn't, when it stops going, I just got off a coaching call with one of our students earlier here, or actually just a quick little intro call, but I was going over it with them, right? The difference between a stock and a car. When you take your foot off the gas pedal for a car, obviously the car just slows down and it, slows down, momentum lost. Well, the same happens for a stock, but the difference is that when the stock slows down, the stock goes in reverse for you. The car just stops, right? You don't go in reverse automatically and head the other way automatically. That's what happens here, right? That's what happened to Peloton just before, right? So you got to be privy to that. And, a good part of that is learned in our phase 1 class, reversal time, right around 10:30. That's typically where, more or less we see momentum lost or, at least lower highs built. You got to be careful for a lower low. That's it. All right. So got enough time. We got about like 25 minutes to go before we finish here. And then that's enough time for me to bang out Nvidia. So obviously most of us here are focused on Nvidia. We got Nvidia earnings after the close on Wednesday. That technically would be August 28th. August 28th, we got Nvidia earnings after the close. So I got a few emails on this, well, 1 or 2 heading into the morning session, 2 on this, 1 on Bitcoin. And then I had another one come in just earlier from a student. So asking basically, what do you think about Nvidia going into their earnings call on Wednesday afternoon? Well, I'll tell you what, I'll give you every piece of information that I know. The first thing is this. I don't research the company's fundamentals. I don't research the company's like product release dates. And, I could, I just don't, I'm more of an AMD guy. If anything, it is what it is. And I'm not even as up to date on them as much lately, just to say. For any of my swing traders, investors out there, I'm not the right guy to go to as far as fundamentals or, just overall what the company is up to of late, year over year, product launch dates, etc. Now, what I do know is this, right? I know charting. I know support resistance. I know where my levels are here from icebergs and level 3 and level 4. I know where there is big buying over the last week. We can go into that. What I also know is that, there's a bunch of people on the inside that know of this stock and have been on this trade for a little while, are adding to their positions and have been, hint Nancy Pelosi, legitimately, right? Like, I'm apolitical when I say this. When you see someone make so much freaking money in 1 year, don't you want to follow them? It's the same reason why no one follows Kramer, right? So that's what I'll tell you. Like, Pelosi's killing it, right? I don't know her latest stance on Nvidia, whether she added or whatever, but it's been on fire. If she hasn't dropped off any yet, what makes you think it's gonna, not continue, right? So that's one elementary thought. All right, well, another thought is just this. Okay, if you think that Nvidia is going to go up with the market throughout the remainder of this year into next, regardless of what they're actually up to, then we'll need to focus just on support resistance and not just resistance, not just a target. Because, hey, for as successful as Nvidia has been over the last year, 2 years, etc., their PE ratio is through the roof, right? So let's say if their earnings are just in line and not as good as some may want or expect, you might get a very negative reaction from that, right? So that's where we have to focus on where our levels are for a trade like this. So I'll tell you what, we knew Traders Talk was today at 12 o'clock Eastern time. It is every Monday. We had a little time to prep up for this one. So I charted some levels beforehand, and these are all levels that I will take into account going into this week, and we'll even come back next week on Monday and show you what happened. How did these exact levels pan out? Why do I have all of these levels out here to begin, right? I didn't even focus on resistance. We're not focused on that just yet. It's easy to talk about resistance. It's not so easy to talk about where to find a strong bounce from. What happens if Nvidia drops off, right? We have to react both ways. We'll talk about targets in a moment, but let's talk about what if Nvidia crashes, whether they have bad earnings or whether it's just in line and it's a negative reaction. So got a bunch of different levels, got a bunch of different colors, some dashed, some not. I teach this wholly through the phase 2 class and really throughout the coaching program one-on-one, as far as like the levels that I use, the color coordination I got. I like to do a little Miami Vice colors here, a little like, purple, pink, little bright blue, little yellow, little Tommy Vercetti, GTA, whatever it is. So just to say here, right away, I would focus on $5 levels, $5 prices, right? So even 125 I'll map out as a potential iceberg. Much like the cheap stocks where we say for Peloton, hey, every 50 cents is likely to be a level. Give me a quick moment here. There we go. A lot better. There we go. So, just like we say for these cheap stocks where every 50 pennies is a key level, you're not going to do that for Nvidia. Too expensive. Every $5 is absolutely going to be a psychological level for you to work off of. That's also a big level where there's likely to be a lot of not just volume in the stock, but also volume within puts and calls, puts and call volume. So on the option chain. So that meaning 120, 115, 120, 125 there, all the bright blue, right? The bright blue lines right there. Dig into a 60-minute chart for you. So, case in point today, what happened? Nvidia dropped down basically to the blue, broke under the blue, and then it moved back above it. Broke under and over 125. And so far, it's made a pretty successful bounce, at least today, like as a day trade goes. Let me ask our students really quick. Grant, Iqbal, Danny, Luis, all of us here otherwise. What time do stocks typically reverse? Time do stocks typically reverse? 10:30? Oh, shoot. What do you know? Just about, right? Give or take, right? It's kind of funny. All right. Well, that's where I'll even show you here. This is live right now. And, this is just to add more proof to the pudding here. But for Nvidia, we had a pretty big iceberg order earlier today at 125. Right here. About a 275 plus thousand share buyer out there at that price. And yeah, there were icebergs at the other whole numbers, 128, 129 or whatever. But again, every $5, you're expecting an even larger level. So right here, this was your big one for today, at least. For today, at least, there was 346 plus thousand shares. No wonder why it made a pretty clean move, right? Broke under and over and ran. Okay, well, that's first, right? Like all the blue lines represent, just big iceberg levels every $5. So, hey, on the way back up now we could address 130 and say 130 is your next major key resistance on the way up, right? All right. So now at this point, you got some yellow here too. Yellow we talk about in class, phase 2, coaching, etc. The weekly closes and the monthly closes. So even with this, let me just jump back. I should have my other chart. There we go. What I'm focused on here is seeing where we have potential support from prior monthly and weekly closes. So for reference, you could even go as here, back from May monthly close was 109.63, basically 110. That became a level in these subsequent months in July and August, and it broke under it, of course, but it eventually held back above it and ran. If you're bullish, you're looking for that to build as support over time. And if you're still bullish on Nvidia, you'd want to see perhaps this price, 123.54. Look at that, the close price right there of June, 123.54. So that absolutely will create a bit of a level, especially with it being relatively speaking close in price to the 125, right? So that was a big level. It added to this area as support. And this right here was even the closing price, I believe, from if it wasn't just Friday. Let me flip this to a weekly graph here. Oops, not tick bar. Yeah, here we go. So look at this bullish candle here. Just the fat body, it's green. So, this is a very bullish candle. If anything, 124.58. So those were the two yellow lines that you just saw. And those become key levels here, especially as support in the event where Nvidia drops. In the event where Nvidia drops, that would be my line of support to work off of there. One moment here. Not have use my chart. There we go. Cool. So yeah, 124.58, that added to this. You also had this to add on top as well. But hey, for the first time it's pulling back down there, I would expect that to initially hold. So easy to say as a day trade, this was a nice little entry today. Well, if you're bullish on Nvidia, you certainly want to see it hold above this area at first. And then if it breaks below that over time, that's where we'll have to think lower. So if it ends up breaking below like this area of support here, pretty much, which it bounced from today, I mean, I don't have your next level plotted until 120. And then really after that, like you have a better area of support here just from the previous chart, just looking back historically on the charting, support resistance, and also a prior monthly close that we had here as well, similar dashed yellow. So, this area would be a strong support if we happen to break this. That's kind of where I'm focused around going into Wednesday's call. These are basically the 2 points of interest that I'm focused around. From like 123.50 up to 125 is support, which again, it bounced from today. And then otherwise, we have this here if it really drops. Now, let's just say if Nvidia drops and they have like inline earnings, the street wanted more, it's an overblown reaction, but they tank. Is this too big of a drop to see? Is that too big of a drop to see right there to have it go all the way down to 115? Not really. Not really at all, like 116, 117 area. Because again, break out the old calculator here. If it's trading at like 127.50 right now, and if it were to drop down to as low as 117, 116, just do a little math here. That's a 9% drop. That's nothing. Guys, 9% drop on an earnings move, that, I mean, honestly is expected for most trades coming off earnings, typically like an 8 to like 12% move. Did you see what happened to PDD today? You see what happened to PDD today? This thing came off of earnings. They got mollywopped. They got demolished, and they were down like 20% going into the market open. Now down, obviously, as you can see, 28% at this point. This doesn't happen as frequent, mind you. But if this could drop 28%, shit, Nvidia could easily drop 9% like that, right? So just be careful. You have your levels plotted. We talked about where to find support, at least coming up. As far as where to find resistance, we talked about the 130 level, at least. Otherwise, I'll just kind of use this chart here for this one. But we talked about 130, 135, 140. Think about where it topped off just previously here, back in June. A little over 140, mind you, but it was a pop and drop. It gapped above that level likely, and then just crashed below it. It held as resistance on the first test. This is holding as resistance on this initial retest of it. So the more times it could nip it, and then try and close over it, that leads to more bullish confirmation. But otherwise, that would just be a simple rule to follow, basically every $5. Now, if you want to get crazy, if you want to get funky and crazy with me here, you can go into a couple fibs and do like fib extensions and really figure things out. It could be tough because it bottomed out nicely back from end of 22. But even you can just kind of use this as a nice bottom here. Bottom, top, bottom, created this. You could even do that more like here as well. Bottom, top, bottom. Well, that makes sense. Look what's holding right now as resistance. That's crazy. So that fib extension level right here, 130, 142, it's basically holding right now as resistance today. That's a loose level I just kind of plotted, but it's based off the fib extension here. You have a pretty strong bottom back from April. You have an obvious top here, and then a new obvious bottom. This is very much in play. So yeah, 130, 136, that fib level, that plays in part. But after that, shit, this thing can go up to 150 as a psychological level. You would absolutely respect that. $150. Think about every $5 and $10 level. How about every $50 level? So 150 would be that much more important. But after that, even like, look at this. You got 156.48. So as your next fib extension level, that would be something to focus on in the event where they have bullish earnings, or if you're looking for a bounce over time, like if they drop and you're trying to get a good swing bounce. All right, well, this could even be good support, 115.83. That's actually fib extension level here too. It broke above it as resistance. Really quick, let me ask Grant, Gillis, Iqbal, Dave, Luis, DJ, all of our students here in chat. You know the answer to this, but when a stock breaks over resistance and it clearly runs from resistance. It's not just a little break of the level, but when a stock breaks resistance and it clearly runs from it, resistance should become what? What are we expecting resistance to flip into? Support. Absolutely. So, on a pullback here, I didn't even have this in mind when I had my, other levels out there. Let's actually get that going again. 115.83. I got a lot of lines here. So if you're confused by, just the amount of different horizontal lines, I got you. I got you. I understand. I normally don't get this crazy showing you all this throughout the Traders Talk workshop, but basically, point being that new grayish, greenish, olive-ish line right there, right? 115.83-ish. That's just in line with this area still. Just more evidence. This area. It's not going to hit any one specific price to the penny, or it's not like I'm expecting for it to hit this one price and that's it, or this one price and that's it. When you have multiple lines that are right near each other, it creates a layer of support, a web of support. So, hey, I just feel confident, even on a drop, that this would serve as a strong bounce area. If they have good earnings, then hell, they might break out right away over 130 and that 131 fib level and then fly higher. So, that's just basically what to focus on. It's not just where to find targets and resistance and, oh, it's going to keep going up perfectly. Not at all. You can't expect it. Even if they have a great product, good financials, etc., if the earnings are even in line and not better than what the street is expecting, I've learned that. I've learned it on AMD years back. So trust me, same could happen with Nvidia of all things. All right, so what time is it? 52. Whew, nice, we killed it right there. All right, now we got a little bit more time left before we finish up. I want to get to Bitcoin because I had a couple emails that came in on Bitcoin recently and then just one overnight into this morning. So I wanted to actually go into this last week and I didn't have as much time. So much like I was talking about with like Nvidia and how every $5 creates a new psychological level basically for Bitcoin, for like $64,000 Bitcoin. Yeah, I would say even every $1,000 is not so important. It can be, but to me, I've learned this just from my own charting and from my own experience, and I've been telling a number of traders of this in our room. It's like every 2,500, every 2,500 points. So if you want to go every 5,000, you can. But for this, at least, I'd say every 2,500. So like 50,000 and then 52,500, right? So over time, look what happened. Flip of resistance into support here. 52.5 was resistance here, which added to the flippening from resistance into support as well, probably on a smaller scale. I'm not going to do every single, 52.5, every 2,500, but basically to show you right now with where we're at, well, we got 65,000 here. We've been trying to hold above and we've been failing to run higher from it. So we've been having good breaks over 65,000, but we're failing to run from it and make higher highs. So at least from that point, after 65,000, 67.5. After that, obviously, 7,000. And that's what leads us even to this like real top here. The real top, if you're looking for like just like the good part of the bull market, the Bitcoin bull market, 72.5. I mean, that's actually pretty strong historically on the weekly chart, just from like the last run that it had. It was basically trying to make that move up towards 72.5 and it was stalling out here and here. And over time, it just continued to hold. So that's where basically you're going to look for a breakout. But before that, 65,000. Really, at this point, if we could hold over 65, we're looking pretty good on the way up. Now, this is where we'll even be able to apply level 4, right? Because Bookmap is great for this reason. They give us the data to track Bitcoin at any point. Let's see if I can get as much data as I can here. Hopefully it doesn't freeze my stuff up, but do real time right now. And again, if you have any questions on Bitcoin altogether, let me know. Just even outside of this workshop, I'll be able to address it with you via email or just in our trading room in our one-on-one coaching program. Well, right now, that's no shocker. That's no shocker. You got big resistance where? 65, not 64. This looked kind of big in relation, but zoom out, 65, zoom out, 70. In between there, 67.5. I would still consider 67.5 to be a key level. But, hey, you could even say every 5 and find clean support resistance to work with. There's a little something here at 62. That's not much in relation to this, but maybe with 62.5 as a 2,500 increment, that could play as a small little support. But I'd still focus on right now. You got like 250 Bitcoin nearly on the ask at 65,000. That's what this represents. And for anyone new here, just so you realize, like, if you're focused on Bookmap, if you're focused on Bitcoin, if you're not focused on Bitcoin, I just want to show you the sheer size of this. Because when you look at like the number 246, that might not like sound like a lot, because in stock land here that we're a part of, you're looking at icebergs here that are 120,000 shares. This represents just, one Bitcoin like per number. So like one is one Bitcoin. So that represents 247 Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's trading at 63,680 right now. If you got that number there on my camera, my webcam there, that is $15,700,000+ worth of action. So I'd say that's a lot, right? I'd say that's a lot of money. We followed a big money here at CTU. So in lieu of that, and in lieu of kind of seeing this, it's not a bad level. 65K is a pretty good level. It's like had a few outings here where it held as support, held as resistance, expectedly so. It's just been failing to run higher. So this is where I'll tell you, hey, once it breaks 72.5, game on. But fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, also shame on you. A third, a fourth time, right? Eventually, we're going to get what we want here. So if you haven't had any skin in the game yet with Bitcoin and you see this already, this is actually a great thing. If you haven't had any skin in the game yet and you're looking for a move, this is as good as you want to see Bitcoin right now. It broke under it as support. It dropped. Support should become resistance at first. It is. Sounds fair to me. Now the question is, what happens? Do we get a pullback, or is it going to clear over 65? If it could break over that iceberg order here, the 200, now 250, and Daryl, you got Dave in our room. Who's adding the Bitcoin right now to the ask at 65,000? Is that you, Grant? You add just the extra 4 Bitcoin here. Now it's over 250. I'm teasing, obviously, with that. But just to say at least that, that's resistance. If it could re-break that resistance, much like we would expect with a stock, and it re-break over resistance on a stock, then we should expect a pretty smooth run, right? A pretty clean move. And Daryl says, sure. Daryl, if you got $100 I could borrow, let me know. Now, Brian says, how do you get Bitcoin on Bookmap? So that I will have to say, if you're on Thinkorswim, I don't know if you're able to get the data or not. You might need to contact them specifically and see if they have data additional. But otherwise, I just have it set up from the fine folks at Bookmap. Bruce Pringle and the fine folks at Bookmap hooked me up. So I go to connections, I go to configure, I add the connection here. I add the Bookmap data connection, and then from there, you want to have this up here, platform Bookmap data, not DX feed, Bookmap data. And then all of this, I just keep the same. Spot, multi-book, I don't touch that. I don't touch. And then Bitcoin to US Tether. So USDT, this is what you want to see here. And these are my settings. That's basically it. From Larry, Josh, I was hoping you could slip me 1 Bitcoin out of your stash. All right, Larry, I wish I had 1 full Bitcoin out of my stash. I've had my positions divvied up, just my crypto stuff. Big Cardano guy. I have some now in Solana. I have some in what's called OP, Optimism, tiny stuff. I have a leveraged Bitcoin position, which is on Coinbase. So that's Bitcoin, but it's actually leveraged. You could actually do that on Coinbase.com. I don't want to give anyone any crazy ideas. So that actually, you know what? No better time to finish up Traders Talk than right now. So, folks, we're going to finish up at least here. If you have any questions, feel free to chat me just inside our live trading room. You know where to find me there. But any lengthier questions, if there's trade journals you want to send over for me to review and help you out on, please do. Josh@ctutrading.com is the handle. Otherwise, on social media, hey, actually, this as well. On social media, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, etc., @CyberTradingU, still showing on the bottom left. Actually, we've had a couple of videos out, and we'll likely put another 1 or 2 out this week. But definitely make sure to check this out here. We've got a ton of different views, bunch of commentary on the chat section of this as well. But the ASTS review we did last week, if you haven't checked it out, definitely make sure to rewatch it. Rewatch this video. We clipped out about 5 or 6 minutes worth of it for you, but gives you the levels that we looked at last week, and it could actually give you a good study session as far as how those levels became support on that stock even today. Because if I'm not mistaken, which I don't think I am, 31.35 wasn't that my entry level last week on this damn thing? Look how that became support. Are you kidding me? I wasn't like even planning that, folks. That's crazy. Just as we finish up, I swear, if you go back on this video, we were talking about the 31.35 level as far as book map and big volume. This guy right here, look at that. Right, that's on the video right there. So that's how that level 31.35. That wish I'm in this. I wish I was in this trade right now. But that's what we teach you here in our trading room each and every day, each and every month in our live classes. But again, hey, if you're looking to join us, follow and subscribe to our YouTube channel @CyberTradingU, or otherwise scan that QR code with your phone, with your camera, just on the top left right there of the stream. Get you week-long access to our live trading room. I got to fill up on water. We're going to finish up at least for right now, folks. We'll be back inside our live trading room at least later on today at 2:30 Eastern just for the afternoon meeting, and we'll go from there. Talk to everybody soon. Take care, folks.